Look, let's talk about DOGE. The Department of Government Efficiency has announced a further wave of contract terminations, noting that they identified thousands of cases where more than $300 million in loans were granted to children. Yes, children. The loans were issued in 2020 and 2021 while the world was struggling with the COVID pandemic, and it's not even clear what they were used for. I mean, what's the reaction been in DC to the cuts, to what DOGE is finding? We just keep getting more and more evidence of waste.
Yeah, and the problem is a lot of the legitimate cases of waste, fraud, and abuse are being conflated with some of the more like politically inflammatory, although I would argue popular policies, like, for example, DEI. The people on X have spent the last week arguing legitimately about transgender mice and whether Donald Trump was right in his joint address to Congress to talk about $8 million going to transgender mice, and that being a point of DOGE. But DOGE is also actually genuinely finding some inefficiencies in the federal government. And that's something that Democrats, we've seen a couple of Democrats come out and say, we should have done this. Why didn't we own this issue? The government is this stumbling leviathan, and it has all of these problems. This is bipartisan. And, Democrats now look at Republicans and say they're owning this issue that we owned with Bill Clinton in the 1990s. And it's bad politics for them because there are some legitimately awful cases like this one.
Absolutely. And you see people protesting and you just can't really even understand their argument when there are so many receipts being delivered every single day. But finally, Emily, there are more scare campaigns around Donald Trump because there haven't been enough of those. The new attack line is that Donald Trump could cancel elections. Joe Walsh, who's a former Illinois Republican congressman who ran for president in 2020, went on MSNBC to say this about the president.
I think, Michael, the biggest failure of all of us during this Trump era has been the failure of imagination. We have not imagined how bad and how low he'd go. He tried to overthrow an American election 4 years ago. I have no doubt that he could try to stop the midterm elections. If he's physically able, he may try to run again in 28. This is really scary.
It is scary, Eugene.
I mean, I think some of us need to come back down to reality. We need to use our imagination more about what Trump could possibly do. It's not a very strong case.
Well, and it's actually dangerous for the left to start making that argument because there is a serious effort on the American right. It's very small right now and it shouldn't be overstated. But at places like CPAC, there are legitimately arguments being made that Donald Trump should run for a third term, not that he should just appoint himself to a third term. And I don't particularly agree with this. I'm happy to hear the argument out, but there are people who want that. The problem for the left is that if they say he's just being dictator and he's just going to appoint himself and cancel elections, they're going to numb people by overshooting it. If there's a legitimate argument to be made about Donald Trump saying the Constitution should be amended to allow him to run for a third term, so it's not helpful at all, and it's just what Joe Walsh has been doing, sadly, for the better part of the last decade.
Emily Jashinsky, Washington DC correspondent at UnHerd. Thank you so much for joining us on Power Hour.
Thank you.